Yo, what up? Welcome to Free Refills Podcast, where we come together as youth leaders to discuss the realities of leading in youth ministry. Our hope is that you leave refilled, refueled, and re-energized to carry on in ministry. I'm your host, Boss, coming to you from Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm joined by my co-host, Dusty.
What's up?
Coming from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and a new voice and a new co-host, Orlando, coming to you from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Stay classy, San Diego.
Each episode, we have a special guest join us in our conversation. And this episode, we have Mike Hickerson. Mike, welcome to the show.
Man, honored to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Mike, before we jump into this, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you located? Tell us about your family and how long you've been in ministry.
Okay, so I live in Ventura, California, which is a really tough spot to live. You know, it's right by the beach, right north of LA, north of Malibu, south of Santa Barbara. No, we planted out here Mission Church in Ventura, California in 2011 with 3 couples. It's been a journey, privilege of my life to be able to do this. I grew up in Oklahoma, married and lived in Kentucky for a while, then moved to Illinois, all in student ministry, and then got to plant in California. So God was kind to me. I married a Kentucky girl. So my wife's name is Jody. She's amazing. We have 3 daughters. That's a lot of estrogen. So you can pray for me.
Sure.
So I have a senior daughter that actually a graduate that just graduated. She's 18. Her name's Hayden. I have a getting ready to be a sophomore. Her name is Bryce. And I have a getting ready to be a 7th grader. Her name is Tyler. They're boy names. I'm their dad. You'll have to get over it. So it's a blast. They all play soccer. It's phenomenal. My graduate is getting ready to be a freshman at GCU in Phoenix, Grand Canyon University. So navigating all that stuff. So been a blast. A lot of fun.
That's awesome. And how long have you been in ministry?
Oh, my bad. So I didn't grow up in church. So I lived in Owasso, Oklahoma. And Dusty's boss, his senior pastor was the guy that invited me to church for the very first time. He was the first person to ever tell me about Jesus. So I never grew up in church, and then came to Christ in Owasso, Oklahoma. And then as a high school student, I'm like, I think I'm called into ministry, but I don't know what that means. And so I went to Ozark Christian College in Joplin, Missouri.
Cool.
And did internships every summer and all that. So I would say since I graduated from there, and actually every summer that I was there, I was in ministry. And so that was I graduated high school in 1995. I'm 43. So it's game on. So I would say, so for the last 20 plus years, I've been in ministry. Most of that was in student ministry. I'm biased as student pastors. I love it. I feel like God demoted me to become a lead pastor. So that was part of the plan.
Yep.
Amen. Yeah, Amen. That was kind of the planting process for me. I had to undo that calling, because God was shifting it for me to be the lead.
That's good. That's awesome. Well, we're stoked to have you be a part of this conversation. And I'll let Dusty kind of take it from here, as he's your fellow Oklahomian. I don't know what.
I've never heard of Oklahoma, but I don't know. With that.
I just feel like I've heard that Okie is sometimes derogatory. So I wanted to steer away from that, but I wasn't sure.
Just call him Oklahoma night.
That's right. We can't get offended. We're from Oklahoma, so we can't really get offended. We just embrace it all.
Well, we can try. We usually ask questions just to get to know the guest a little bit more, let our audience know. So, Mike, when we ask, if being Free Refills podcast, we ask about the same question every single time. What is your favorite go-to drink? Maybe even it's just we get a lot of people well, I drink water because I'm healthy. I'm like, okay, great. What's the other thing, right? What's the other drink that you just feel like you have to have? What's that drink? I saw you drink coffee. What is your drink?
All right. So I'm going to give you a couple windows. So if it's in the morning, I'm going to need an Americano, a tall Americano with an extra shot, because give me that espresso, straight to the vein to help me get going. If we're sitting around the fire pit and hanging out, I'm probably going to have some Woodford Reserve bourbon, because I'm married a Kentucky girl. So I don't know how that sits for the podcast, but I'm going to keep it real. That's exactly what I'd be doing.
We're in the midst of COVID. You got to cope somehow. Not too much, just a little bit.
Well, even in the midst of COVID, what I've heard is you're either going to be, a chunk, a hunk, a drunk, or a monk. So you only got 4 options. So you got to figure out which one you're going to be.
I'll let you know. I think I'm on the chunk side on that one. So with your reserve, are you talking just the classic Woodford Reserve? Or are you talking double oaks? What are we?
Okay, so I'm not, I'm not bougie enough to get the double oak, but I will take the double oak when I can. So
I'm bougie. Okay.
oh
Good.
no,
Yeah,
it's not bougie.
cool.
It's just it's more expensive. It's a more expensive bottle. It's good. It tastes good.
It is.
So
It's
I
a
literally
lot.
lived next to Woodford County when I lived in Kentucky for 6 years. So
Oh,
what's
okay.
ironic is it's more expensive in in Kentucky than it is in California. That's the only thing that's
Mhm.
cheaper in
That's the
California.
only thing, probably.
Only thing, yeah. What about what are you reading right now that you just feel like everyone needs to probably pick up?
Yeah, so there's probably a couple. I don't know, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer
Man, we've heard that a lot.
so that was pre-COVID and has helped me into COVID because it really was a slowdown. It's fantastic. I think he takes some liberties on how he does it. I wish he would stay more descriptive instead of prescriptive on a couple of chapters, but it's 2 thumbs up. And then I'm walking through with a couple guys, The God I Wish You Knew, no, it's Falling in Love with the God That Jesus Knew. It's The Good and Beautiful God. Sorry. It's James Bryan Smith. And it is fantastic. I've gone through it probably 5 times with different groups of guys, but it basically walks through a lie we believe about God and then shows how Jesus is like reveals the God that is opposite of that lie. And then it has practices. It's like a way to help guys get into like normal spiritual practices, but they don't realize that they're doing spiritual practices. So it's really, really good. I love James Bryan Smith. There's a 3-part series called The Apprentice series that I would recommend to anybody.
Yeah, no, it's good. All right, Netflix. If you've been, if maybe you haven't defined which one of those 4 you are, maybe at the chunk side, which I'm a Netflix binger, probably too. What's your go-to show or something that you stumbled upon that you just like really enjoyed?
Well, at the beginning of COVID, I watched Pandemic, and
That's good.
So that was fun. No, but I'm like, I'll watch any documentary about. So I've watched almost everything on Netflix that there is to watch. I think I'm getting down to the well of everything there is to watch. So like right now, like if you made me be honest, right now, I watched an episode of Hannah last night, which is on Amazon Prime. It's not good, but I just was watching it because I had nothing else to do. So. But I like, my girls watch Gilmore Girls. So I get out of the house. I go out back whenever they watch Gilmore Girls. My wife watches with them. So The Office is always on at our house. Like Mandalorian, Hamilton is unbelievable. I've watched it 7 times. My wife actually told me, do not put that on again. I'm like, babe, you're artistic. I thought you would like this. I like it. She's like, I'm tired of it. And the songs are running through my head. So stuff like that. We're all over that.
It's good.
That's awesome.
You should, next time she tells you not to do it, just be like, babe, I'm just like my country.
Yeah.
I'm young, scrappy, and hungry.
That's right.
And I'm not throwing away my shot.
That's right.
I'm not doing it.
I got it. Yes.
So this one's going to be really personal. All right. I want to get to really get to know you. Okay. So we're going to dig a little deeper on this one. All right. You ready?
I'm bringing it.
Okay. Would you rather lose your phone or lose your wallet?
Well, like this will be funny to all my friends that watch this. I recreationally lose both. So, so I would much rather lose my wallet because I've lost my wallet before and all that's replaceable. And for something about the phone that I don't, that I feel odd about. So I used to have the like thing where the phone and the wallet were combined and you lose them both at the same time. And that's the worst thing ever. So I separated them out. So, but I recreationally lose both, but I would much rather lose the wallet than the phone.
Okay, good.
That's good.
So if anyone needs an extra.
Yeah, because I can call and cancel the
$2
cards. I can call and cancel the cards immediately. I can't do anything with the wallet to cancel the phone.
That's true, and it costs a lot more to replace the phone than it does the wallet. So my next question is, what is your favorite thing to do with your family? I don't know if there's one particular thing or if each person kind of has their thing that you love to do with them.
Yeah, so there's probably 2 things. I'm not now I am bragging, but we do live like minutes away from the beach, so we can go to the beach all the time, and our girls still love it. Like we don't want to ever get like annoyed or over the beach. Like so, we love that we can just go hang. California beach is different than Midwest or South beach, like all the East Coast beach, because California, you go to cool off at the beach and the East Coast, you go to burn up. And so that we had to learn that, but we love the beach and they get in the water, boogie board, surf, you name it, beach life is good. But I'm a soccer dad. So that's part of, even during COVID, it's been really difficult because all the teams are done. But most of our Saturdays or most of our weeks are trying to figure out scrimmages and practices and then go into tournaments and games. So they're all three really good soccer players. So honestly, I love watching them play soccer and trying not to yell too much.
That's good. That's a spiritual discipline, I think, as a soccer dad and a soccer parent.
I'm not great at it then, and I'm failing miserably. So I have to go stand. My wife is like, "You go stand over there. Don't sit by us."
Yeah, so. And they're like, "That guy's a pastor?" He said, "What?" You're like, "Well, hold on.
Don't hold that against me. Don't hold that against me."
Well, one time, side note for me, my dad was my baseball coach growing up, and he got thrown out of a game, not because he did anything bad. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they tossed him. So that was all the talk at church that weekend. So
your dad a pastor?
He was a pastor at the time.
You're a PK. So my wife is a PK. I married one.
Blessings to her. Yeah.
And she still likes church.
Well, I'm also glad that you utilize the beach and that you haven't lost the blessing that is, because us Midwesterners don't have that. So that's really good. Well, here's a segue for you into our conversation. Like losing your phone or losing your wallet, when you do that, you have to figure out how you're going to move forward, because a lot of us can freeze up and life goes on. So we have to figure it out. And that's why we're here today. We're going to talk about this is the idea of reimagining momentum. We have all, and we are currently all still living in a COVID reality, and what that has halted everything. It's a crisis. So it's amplified everything that's good and amplified everything that is missing and bad. But we're trying to figure out, some of us are reopening, but we're all still trying to figure out how to move ministry forward. And a lot of us everybody has been forced to think about it differently. And what that means is reimagining momentum. So for those of us that are in youth ministry, and because you said you have a fondness of that, you're not in that position directly, but now you get to sit in a seat of being a senior leader. And then also you'll talk about this too, is that you have this church assessment thing that you've been helping other churches go through. And so we brought you in because we were like, man, this would be a great conversation to have with you, because your lens is a little bit from a different perspective and can help those of us that are in youth ministry. How do we redefine and reimagine momentum? Maybe because momentum was different before. It's not big events anymore. It's not this weekly gathering where we all get together. So how do we get to that space? So probably before we start into it, let's, from your perspective and what you're kind of seeing from your own senior pastor position, senior leader position, and then also the church assessment, what are some of the quick things that you're seeing, like, this is kind of momentum now that we didn't count as momentum pre-COVID?
Yep. Yeah, so the first thing I would say, that's a great question. And I think it's taken us so long as the church to figure out how to change the metrics of what we're counting. And if I could rewind 4 months ago as capital C church, I wish we could have flipped it quicker. Like, knowing what we know now, I wish we could flip it quicker. And I would encourage any student pastor to flip it quicker if you haven't already. Like, whatever your metrics were, and I hope that you knew what was a win before. I would hope that good leaders would know what a win is and what they're trying to accomplish. But you've got to throw all of that out. And if you're trying to like gauge your like attendance pre-COVID and like attendance during COVID and try to feel like you're doing well, like, you're going to be frustrated. So you've got to almost like throw pre-COVID out and go like, okay, what are we counting in the middle of COVID? And I would say, like, there's always ABC, attendance and buildings and cash, and it's got to move to like DEF, like discipleship and engagement and formation. And so, like, I wouldn't gauge any of what's going on during COVID against any metric pre-COVID. You got to have its own metrics. And then one of the things that I've been walking through is like, there's like J-Love is what I would call it, JLUV. There's all kinds of recovery that are going to happen. And so let me just explain it. Like, when something happens, like COVID hits,
Yep.
I mean, there's like a boom, everything drops. And then sometimes we're going to recover like a V. So like as soon as we can gather again, they're going to be students that come to your thing and it's immediate recovery. Sometimes it's going to be a U, like boom, you're going fine. COVID hits and it's going to be a while before maybe their parents let them go or school comes back or whatever, but eventually they'll come back. And then there's going to be people that for whatever reason, like COVID hits, like they're coming across the timeline, COVID hits, and they're never coming back to a physical experience because of they may be at risk. They may have family members at risk. They may have fear. Their family may have fear. It's like, or they just may have drifted away. So they're not coming back. And there'll be people that are a J recovery, like, you know, COVID hits, boom, and they found you or they found community or they found your church in the midst of COVID. And so they're in now. And as soon as you can gather again, they're back. And so I think realizing that that's the kind of recovery we're in. And so no matter where you live, like you can probably see the different states that are trying to figure out that kind of recovery. And even the counties within the states are figuring out that recovery. But I would say even families within that county or in your church are figuring out what category they're in, and then students are going to figure that out in student ministry. So understanding that you're pastoring all of it, and
right,
and we got to figure out what to do with it. So that's probably a lot of information. We can talk more about that.
That's great.
No, I want to make sure that if you're listening to this, I don't care what seat you sit in, go back. I don't care if you're even a CEO or you're someone that's running a Chick-fil-A. Go back to like the ABC, like you said ABC, and then you said DEF, and then you also said J Love. Like, I don't want you, can you just title those again? This is a point where I want to make sure any leader goes, hey, push pause here before you go forward, rewind about a minute and a half, and then re-listen to that part. Can you say that again, just for the people in the back?
So ABC would be attendance building cash, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a way that we count. Like how are we doing good pre-COVID attendance building cash? Like we got to figure that out, and we still have to figure it out, honestly. But in the midst of COVID and post-COVID, it's going to be discipleship, engagement, and formation. And so how do we build into people in the midst of that? Because that's what we can do right now. And then J Love is that's actually economic recovery terms. So but I think it plays out in the church and it plays out in people's lives. So JLUV types of recovery. So I'm learning that everyone at my church is in one of those categories. And so it's helpful for me to know when we're talking about reopening, or when we're talking about having a physical gathering, or when we're talking about whether we're not going to have physical gatherings, that people are all in those categories. And some people are mad that we're not because they're V. They're like, why haven't you opened up yet? And some people are like, why would you ever open up? And so, but that's leadership. Welcome to it. Sorry, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, man, lots of questions coming. To realize that reality, that's overwhelming. Like, talk about that for you when you saw that, whenever that was that you were, I guess, taught to look at it through that lens. Talk about your own personal journey in that, of like being able to get to a place where you're like, okay, this is reality. I'm accepting it now, instead of that's a lot to manage. Yeah.
I think, candidly, leadership is difficult. And so that it doesn't matter which area of leadership you're in, everyone, it's like my favorite definition right now is disappointing people at a rate that they can stand. That's my favorite definition of leadership, because I feel like every time that a leader blows the whistle, half the people are mad at you, and especially in this moment. So even as student pastors, like kids, families, like no matter what you do, somebody's frustrated. And so welcome to it. It doesn't get easier. I think for me, I was in hold on mode. Like just hold on. We're going to be fine. We're going to pivot. We're going to pivot to online. We're going to just chill. It'll all be back. Everything will be fine by the summer. Mm-hmm. And we just, I was just feeling our team was just in hold on mode. And then we said, I just kind of wanted to break that. And we were at a leadership meeting, and I'm like, okay, I want it to come back. I want to come back physically as soon as we possibly can. I'm in the open up, please, let's hurry camp. Right. But what if it doesn't? And let's plan for 6 months from now that it doesn't. And what would we do versus let's hold on and then end up there? And so what we've kind of been committed to is that we think the Great Commission is really important. I think we all probably do. But like, I've just kind of told our team, like, man, we're not off the hook of the Great Commission because of COVID. Like that would be the silliest thing ever. Like the church has gone through harder times, and the church is in harder times in different parts of the world than we have it right now. And the Great Commission is happening. So what do we need to be about? And I think we lost Orlando. He hated that. That's fine. And I heard, honestly, Alan Hirsch, and I like Alan. I don't always read everything that he says, but I thought this idea was money. He said, the gathering in the American church has been the queen on the chessboard for them.
Yes.
And the queen is off the table. So let's see, because if you really want to learn how to play chess, you take the queen off the table and see how you really play. He's like, and there's nothing wrong with the queen. The queen's the best place, the best piece on the whole chessboard, but you got to learn to play without it. And I think that's where we kind of have moved. Okay, what can we do right now? So there's a lot to do that, but I could talk more. So.
Well, it's funny. I just came from a meeting with a college student who we were talking about. I gave him that exact illustration and talking about this through this lens of like, this is our reality. We need to see it this way. So some of us even, and it's not even in other parts of the world, it's other parts of our country, probably in other parts of our city, that people are in different spots. And that's a lot to take in as leadership. But I love that you're defining that.
Great. Thanks, man. Yeah, go for it.
I love the chess example, because I played chess. I was one of those nerds in middle school and high school that just played chess all the time. But I think that's the question I want to ask now is, when we talk about, taking the queen away and can you really play with the other pieces? Can you help kind of identify what some of those other pieces may be for, especially like the student pastor, right? The student minister who is trying to figure it all out. Like it's difficult, right? Because I think the problem that we really have is that we've only played with the queen. And we've never touched any of the other pieces.
So good.
So can you help us identify what those other pieces are?
Yeah. So I would say, like, first and foremost, as student pastors, this is like an opportunity to try something that you've always maybe had on the back shelf that you thought, I think this would work. Because the next generation ideas won't come from my generation; they'll come from the student pastors of this generation. So this is the prime opportunity to try things in an umbrella of grace of like, it didn't work. It's COVID. You get a free swing. But what I would say is, like, think about that. You can't gather, and I know that you like to teach, and I know everybody thinks you're funny and awesome, and you are winsome when you can be around people. And at our worst, we think if I could just hang out with every student, they'd all be saved. I know we all at our worst think that. So take all that away and go, okay, what leaders have you developed that are your student leaders, either that are students or that you're adult leaders that are serving students. So build that muscle as quick as you can. If you don't know how to do that, this is the time to get working on that, because you're going to, hopefully you see like, oh, I don't have any leaders around me, so I can't get anything done. So it's all on me, which means that when we were physically gathering, it was all on me. So like, build your student leaders and build your leaders, and then invest in people, in discipleship, engagement, and formation. So like, you can do studies right now. You can have your leaders do a study right now. You can figure out how to create social media videos right now you can do that responsibly, even physically, like with a limited amount of people. You can count formation. You can build into people now. And then when you walk out of COVID, you'll have an army of people that are ready to take on the world. Like I would say, move the gathering away and move into developing people. It's what we're learning. And again, I'm preaching to myself. So like we're trying to figure it out too.
Right. Yeah. I think that's good.
Can you, I would love for you to dig into that just a little bit deeper, because I think there's an importance to, especially when we talk about the discipleship, engagement, and what was the F?
Formation. Yeah.
Formation. Why is that such a big win to do that? Especially because it's all been on me, right? I've been the guy, I've been this, if I hang out with every kid, they're going to get saved. There's nothing I won't miss if I can just spend time. Now
Right.
my ministry is no longer existent. I can't function. I can't breathe because I can't be around my kids physically. Like, can you please speak into a little bit deeper into
Yep.
why that DEF is important in building into your leaders and helping them grow?
Yep. All right, so I'll move from the student to the senior pastor and then drop back down. So what we're trying to figure out, this is literally what we're trying to figure out. So
Yeah.
we exist to help people find and follow Jesus. That's where our church exists. We're still going to gather online. Like, you can still do stuff online. That's not going away, but I've got to learn to redeploy my online. Like, it's the easiest way and the least energy way to do a online service than has ever happened. The Sunday gathering is the easiest way to do it. We don't need any volunteers. Like, we need like 10 people tops to pull off a great online experience, like, for the church. So now I've got staff. You know, I would want a student pastor to have adult leaders or student leaders. Like, so now we don't need all the energy to pull off the gathering. What we need to do is, like, how do we redeploy all of that talent and giftedness and leadership to build into people? So I would say at this moment, we should be caring for people at the highest level we've ever cared for people. Like, our adult leaders should be calling every family. Like, one idea would be once a month. Doesn't feel like much. Like, that's not much. Like,
Sure.
but it feels like to that family, like, man, my small group leader or my student ministry person or my team that at our church loves us and knows about us. Like, we should be winning that area. You can gather online. We can do studies. We can talk. I can invest in you as a leader. Like, hey, I can walk you through a leadership. Like, so what we're doing as a church is we're creating a whole leadership academy. Like, we're going, okay, we're in this COVID, we can invest in you. And we're creating a care academy, meaning, like, we're going to equip our church. We would love to have an army of people from Mission that can care for their neighbors where they live, work, and play, and no matter what situation they're in. So like, thinking through, like, and I know this is kind of weird because when I moved here, chaplain was a weird thing. Like, I'd never heard of a chaplain before. I'd heard of it, but it was weird. But like, one of our staff members became a chaplain for the Ventura Police Department and got trained in all of the things that a chaplain would do. And we're going, okay, what if we released our care team to be a chaplain where they live, work, and play? And then we're like, well, why wouldn't we want our whole church to do that? To release our whole church to be a chaplain, for lack of a better term. I don't think they'll go to chaplain training, but they may go to care academy training. Sure. And go, like, we want you to care for your people wherever you live, work, and play, that you are God's representative to bring hope and help to those people. So I think on a student level, man, that's game on. Like, you know, like, if you train somebody how to be like care for their friends, handle conflict well, walk into messy situations, you know, all that stuff would be, that's a small piece of it. I don't know if that makes sense, or is that deep enough? Does that make sense?
That's perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect. And I think it adds context to, not to say that that's what we should have been doing in the first place. I don't want to, you know,
maybe,
counteract, you know, I think there's a strong case for that, but I think it's the one thing is I looked at, like, even preparing for marriage in the midst of COVID is what's important. Like, we have to get to that point where we're just like, what is the most quintessential thing that we need to have? If it's not a need, if it's not important, we can't do it. We don't need to do it. We don't have to do it. And I think what you just said was just like, no, what's the most basic thing we can do that allows us to, as you said in the beginning, we got to get this Great Commission across, like that. We're not off the hook on that. So how do we do that? I think that was perfect. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think even going back to that, like our youth ministry programs, or whatever we're doing for our youth ministry pre-COVID, like, put it through the J-Love. Like, there's stuff that we were doing that it immediately stopped, that as soon as we can do it, it'll come back. There's stuff that'll take a while to come back. And this is the gold. There's stuff that we were doing that stopped that we never need to do again.
There it is.
And it's okay. And there's stuff that we started, probably online stuff, that, we need to put gas on that and it'll take off. So anyway.
And then you need to be, like, humble enough to not be upset when a student or your leaders or go, like, hey, if you run that through, like, if you're bold enough to actually do it, don't be upset when then that L comes and they're like, man, I hope we don't, like, can we not do this when we come back? Because if that's something you've put in place and that's a passion that you had, maybe ask why. You know, like, what are you seeing? Why? Like, asking questions isn't going to get you in trouble there. Right. Getting defensive, that will get you in trouble. Yep. And so I love, like, I love that. You know, I think I love how you gave us that scope of like your care team and like what you guys are doing at your church. Cause I've always heard, I've always heard like, hey, if it's something that the moment that you make a piece of the church for only certain people,
right,
then it gives everybody else off the hook of, well, I don't have to be part of the prayer team. I don't have to pray for everybody because I'm not part of the prayer team. I don't have to really like the kids at the church because I'm not part of the nursery team. But the moment that you kind of like go, no, this is about us. Like, this is about what all of us are looking to do. So I love that you're kind of pushing your people to go like, hey, this is what we all should be doing.
Mm-hmm. And I would call us a very evangelistic church. Like, we're trying to reach people like addicts and, Hell's Angels has a headquarters here. And like, so, I mean, it's a great spot to live.
That's cool.
There's up and out and down and out here. It's like farmer surf. So, but like, we would be like, we're going after trying to reach people for sure. And what we say is like, we're not letting go of that muscle. What we want to do during COVID is we want to put gas on and elevate that community and development muscle or discipleship or formation muscle, because we can move more staff, we can move more energy, we can move more dollars there in this moment than ever before, because what it takes to pull off the Sunday gathering online. So so it's like an elevation that I don't think that'll go away post COVID. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So I think we just mentioned something that's really important that I'd love for you to kind of dig into a little bit, is you as a leader, right? Having to put aside all of that, go through the assessment, the J-Love. I feel like, that those things sound good, but I think there's just a beneath the surface thing that you had to do with yourself to say, let's take the time to evaluate. So can you kind of like walk us through what that was like for you in the midst of COVID, and kind of saying like, all right, let's shake the dust off, let's get going. Like, what happened in you to help make that happen?
Yeah. So this is where I probably have a unique seat for the student pastors that are listening. Like, I am biased to student ministry. I love it. I absolutely love it. But I sit in a different seat now. And I would just tell the student pastors, it is a different seat. So and you won't know till you're on the other side of that seat. And then you'll go back and go like, oh yeah, it's a different seat that the lead pastor sits in. And so it's okay. But we get caught up, any church gets caught up in the spanking machine is what I call it, of Sunday. Like, so when you're in the spanking machine, because it's coming and Sunday's coming and it's just keep coming. And like, even if you take a week off or 2 weeks off and somebody teaches for you, when you come back from that, the spanking machine is kicking back up again. It's always kicking up. And so I think what this has afforded people is that, like, leaders, if they're salty enough, can get above the fray of the spanking machine, because it's the easiest it's ever been to put out the paper on Sunday. It requires the least amount of leadership it's ever required, because it's the least amount of people that it's ever required probably in any leader's life. But it helps them get above the fray and to go like, okay, how are we doing really? Like, not just what do we talk about, but what are the numbers behind what we say is important to us? And then what do we need to fix and where do we need to go above the fray? That's what I think is really important, to get above it and then go like, okay, that's the next season of work that we need to be about. And let's go back down the mountain now and get about that season of work. So I don't know if that helps enough, but yeah.
Yeah, that's solid. Like, I think that's difficult, right? It's easy to talk about, but it's difficult because Sunday's coming. So we got to you have to pull yourself out of it. Maybe it is like let somebody else sit and do for you. Hopefully you're at a place where you can hand something off to somebody and go, you do this. I'm going to take a week and I'm going to think about, I'm going to go up there. I'm going to go up top and I'm going to look down and look at it and try to evaluate for a second. So I think it's really good.
I would say if we don't have, if you don't have somebody that can do that, then you probably need to work on that skill as a leader. So, and because if you can't work on a student ministry, if you can't work on it, and you always have to be in it, then you probably need to budget some time to get on it and look at it. And it's not like you're Moses coming down from the mountain. Take people with you, but work on it.
So
That's good.
let me ask you this, like, let's talk about metrics. Let's talk about let's talk about like, as much as we're reimagining momentum, a lot of us are having, like, as a youth pastor sitting here, a lot of us are having to reimagine success.
Yep.
So I think that's part of the transition. As much as we're reimagining momentum, that will only happen if we have reimagined success. What is something that you could say, maybe some gold, right? That, like, a youth pastor sitting in a staff meeting, right? Maybe this is the first time ever that this youth pastor is being asked their opinion because, hey, how do we get on Instagram?
Yep.
What camera do we need? Like, whatever. If they've gained any kind of favor in the eyes of that meeting room, what is some gold that they could talk about in that meeting room to gain, to, like, hey, we could reimagine success this way as a church? What would you give?
Yeah, I think it first starts that they've got to know, they've got to have a proven thing that they've tried that's worked. So, I mean, most lead guys, God love us, but we want to know if it works. We don't want to know your idea yet. We want to know, like, have you tried it? Like, we need to give you permission if it's going to cost money, a lot of money, but we really want to know, like, okay, don't tell me like we need to post Instagram like this. Tell me, like, this is why we do it, because it gets this engagement and this is the fruit from it. I think maybe our church could learn from this. So you don't want to be arrogant. You want to walk in going, the student pastor needs to walk in having, like, I know why we're doing this, and this is why it works, and this is why it's helpful. So, and have the posture of, this is what I'm learning. If I could help in any way, I would love to help across the board, but it's going to change. Just so you know, it's probably going to change our church's social media for outward facing presence, and somebody needs to own it at some point. And if you want it to be me, that's fine, but we also just increased my job by a lot. So I would say, student pastors, you've got to help your leader know what success is for you, because they don't know right now, because they think that did you have more people than you had last week? Like God love us as senior leaders. That's like, we're going like, how's it going? Did people get saved? Are people in groups? Did you have more that came? And then like, you kind of like that as a student pastor, because you get to live in your own world. But right now you're going to hate it. So, because they think like you can't gather, so they don't even know what you do. You got to help them with what you do. So, and why you're doing
that sets up this question, because you sit in a senior leader position, and you've sat in you've been demoted into that. So then you sat in the prime spot of youth leader. I would imagine if I'm listening to this and I'm not me, I'm going, like, every conference, it feels like there's some leader that talks, and then you go, did my senior pastor hear that? Or did my senior leader I hope they heard what I heard, because they were talking to them. So how do you then approach, if you're like, I need to get my senior leaders to see this and see it from this perspective, because there's a assumption that youth ministry is supposed to look a very certain way, and we got to get back to that, and that's their own real measure of success. So how do you even get into that conversation?
I think student people, men, women, need to know what is success. So it goes back to, like, if you've changed your metrics, that's great, but what are they? Have you really? Or are you just hustling? So, like, have a plan, walk into your senior leader and help us know, like, hey, this is what I'm viewing success as, and this is what I'm going after. Is that cool with you? Because it's way different now. And so this is why I'm pivoting, to use the word. This is why I'm pivoting to this. And I think this is going to be really helpful. And in a week or 2 weeks or a month, I'll come back and show you how this is working. Like, so to be able to, so when if a leader comes in, any leader of any ministry, but a student leader for sure, if they come in and go, all right, this is my plan. Again, I don't know if it's going to work. This is all new. I've never led in COVID before. like he's going like, I want to try this. I'm like, dude, go for it. I'm in. Let's see what works. I may tweak it a little bit, because I'm like, oh no, try that and see if that works. But I'm really letting him come up with the plan, but I want him to have a plan of what he wants to count and what wins. So I would say lead up in a way of like, help define your metrics, but you better have them of what you're actually counting, and then come back to him.
Yeah, that's big, because we mentioned it earlier that maybe the way that we were rating before wasn't really what we should have been rating. And now this has forced us to get to a place where we're like, that doesn't, like, attendance doesn't matter right now. Like,
I would even say like camp, like camp is like, so are you judged on that less people went to camp this year?
Sure.
Well, that feels like crazy, because like he's not judged on less people attending online than were physically, you know, so you got to help, like, even bring some of the chaos to him or her about what you're navigating and what you're counting. And as long as any leader worth their salt that walks in, that has somebody walk in with a plan that seems right for the right reasons, they're going to be like, go for it. We don't know what we're doing right now. Go for it. You know? So
I would say, as I take off the hat of like the NNYM of helping leaders maybe explore different things, I would always told youth pastors, whatever you're seeing as a system that you wish was in place for the church, why are you not at least beta testing it in your space? Like, instead of always, like you said, I love that you said, like, don't come to us with like, we should be doing this, 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 and this. Well, like, well, how do we do it? Like, I don't know. I just throw you the idea. Like, it's better to come in with like the solution, right? Hey, here's the problem I see. Here's a solution I think that might work. Might not be the all be all, but hey, here's a starting spot. And now that I sit in the seat of the youth pastor, the family pastor, that I sit there and I go, hey, you know what? I'm blessed to have a leader, right? That's your best friend, who's kind of just lets me do my thing, but I create systems, and then I bring them to him, because he's like, hey, how did that go? And I'm like, hey, here's something we could do differently here. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it for the big picture? Which has given us healthy conversation. So if you're a youth pastor, I want to say, like, be encouraged by that, regardless of the relationship you have with your senior pastor. But I want to back what he said, is if there's something that you see that could be maybe that you could elevate, put it in your context
100%.
And then bring it to them as a package to say, hey, I've tried and tested. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think if you want to have influence at your church, which I hope that leaders do, I hope they're not creating their own island. But like, bring results. I don't mean that in a weird way, but like, yeah, if you think that your church should be better at small groups, well, be killing small groups in your student ministry. And then go like, man, if you want to be really bold, you go like, hey, I think I've got time, because I've led, you don't say it this way, but because I've led so well and have so many leaders, I think I could help our church in this area, not just my island, you know, so where it's not just like a, you know, silo, but you actually help with that gift across the board for the whole church. But don't bring that like critique to, we suck at community and groups, and our church doesn't even value that, when your ministry doesn't value that either, you know, like, so you got to balance that a little bit.
That's good.
It almost sounds like, because I like to just make things really plain, but like it's like the concept of just do what you say you want to see. Like, literally, as the youth person, you have the chance to create not a separate church. No, it's the notion of, like, we all understand that as a youth leader, you're affecting the future of the church. Absolutely. But I don't think we take into account, like, but you're doing that now. Like, the future is today for you. Like, you don't have to worry about 6 months down the line or 6 years down the line with the church. Your job is to do that now, right? All these things that you want to see. And it's almost that very corny thing we like to say, like, be the change you wish to see. Like, no, actually, you have the chance to do that exact thing. And to your point, it's, you actually can get rewarded for that. And you actually end up really seeing yourself become a light for your particular leadership group, to say, hey, this is what I've been doing. And everyone loves to hear what's happening instead of what you want to do, right? 100%. Whether it's an investor, it's politicians, no matter who you are, the one thing that everyone loves to see is what you've been doing. and not just what you want to do. So I just wanted to kind of make that super plain to everybody 100%. Listening.
Yep.
Go do. It's okay
Facts.
to go and do.
Sorry, I talked over you. But facts are friends, man. So that's great. You think that you are great at social media and our church is not, and your last post had 5 likes. So it's like, I'm like, I don't know that. I mean, I think you have ideas, but you don't have facts. So, or like, you know how to lead small groups so well, and you've done it for 1 semester. It's like, okay, well, you may need to just like, you learn some leadership lessons by getting kicked in the teeth a little bit on like what you set up fails a little bit. And like, I'm not critical. I'm a student pastor that failed a lot in that area, but it also is the lessons that you learn, the leadership muscle. I heard this phrase, that the audio is not matching the video, meaning like what we talk about as we think we're really good at, or what our church values are, or what our student ministry values are, like the video of COVID has not really let that play out. So like we talk about the game, but the audio is not matching the video. And I heard that phrase this week, and I'm like, oh man, that's good. So what values does our student ministry have where we talk about, but doesn't really have facts or video to support?
That's solid. That's really cool. I like that image. Wow. That's super cool. I think that a lot of times we come in with ideas, and like you said, and that might be a time where we're exposed. It's exposing in us that we probably should get somebody else to do it because they're better at it. We just are an ideas man or an ideas person, and we go, yeah, I'm not really good at that, but I'll go get somebody to do that. And that's that muscle that you talked about early on, where we need to really work on that muscle, getting more people to do and redeploying people. So that's really cool. Last thing, speak to the youth leader who is, okay, so I'm changing my metrics. I'm starting in on it. Encourage me in this, that it's worth this change of metrics, because it seems like success is not going to be this week. It's not going to be instant. It's going to be a longer period. Is that correct? Am I off, or am I dreaming here? Like, or even
while you're encouraging, or even what, like, I hear you. I want to reimagine success. What should I count? So while you're encouraging, like, what should we count? What should we be looking for?
Yeah. So I care. I would say care immediately for as many people as you can, and release people that will care. Like, develop leaders that will care. That's a muscle that any student pastor needs. We get into it because we love students. And then we realize that no matter how great I am as a student pastor, I can only care for this amount of people well.
Right.
And so you learn quickly, like, oh, I need to develop leaders that care, and then we can care for more people. So, but I would say, like, right now should be high. This is going to be ironic. High touch, meaning high care. There's no reason that we can't care for the people that God has entrusted us with us well. And I know that you want to have a huge student ministry. That's awesome. But if you could care for the people that God has given you well, like, that's the most important thing. Like, don't dream of the stage. Don't dream of the audience. Don't dream of the day when it's in the thousands and you're teaching the thousands. Because if you can't care for 4, then God's not going to let you teach to thousands, would be my huge, and it matters. Like, this is the hardest thing that students have ever gone through. And it's, me and my wife were talking last night at our fire pit. We care for all, like, it's sad, everything that's going on, but the student world and what, like, graduates are missing out on, and what, like, 5th graders and what teams, like, their social construct of where they learned how to be Christ followers, where they learn how to be friends, it's all jacked up, and it's going to be weird for a while for them, because this thing got in our society. So what we could do in this window really, really matters. And so I would tell any student pastor, what you do matters more than you could possibly imagine for eternity and for the families, not just the student, but you're impacting the families and the aunts and the uncles, because you're impacting that student for good. And you won't see it. They're going to be annoyed with you on Zoom, and they're going to fart and do whatever. And, but like, the fact that you're there, like, you're present, you care, you're asking about them, like, you can do all that. Like, that's stuff you can do now. COVID took a lot of stuff away. It did not take away our ability to care.
That's good. Solid. I have to remind myself, and I try to remind other people as well. Like Jesus had 12.
And one of them left and bailed on him.
Right.
So
Exactly. And so like that, I mean, he's fully man, fully God. Those are fully man moments where he had 12, the creator of the universe. And so I have to be like, that's right. Cool.
So let me add to that. And he really had 3.
Right.
If you want to like, so we've like, okay, who are your 12 and who are your 3 are normal conversations that we have. So like I can lead down a row, we can get some stuff done, but 3 I can really invest in. So that triad thing of like, and that counts.
And then in John's eyes, that technically was just one.
Just one. So the one he really loved.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Mike, this is a great, solid conversation. I'm encouraged. I'm fired up. I'm ready to go reimagine things in my own space. And I don't lead a youth ministry directly, so that's super cool. If there was something, maybe there's some people, they heard something and they're like, I got to talk more with that guy. I got to hear more about this assessment. How can they reach out to you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, so I lead a church called Mission Church in Ventura, California. So if you look up Mission Ventura in like any of the Instagram or Facebook, Mission Ventura. And then my email is, I have one email, so it's mike.hickerson@missionventura.com. Or if you get to Mission somehow and hit info, it'll get to me. info@missionventura. I'm like, I want to ask Mike this thing. It'll get to me. So that'd be the best way. I do some coaching with intentional churches. So intentionalchurches.com, there's a ton of great resources there, but like whatever, Mission Church in Ventura is the way to go.
Hey, listen, if you bring this dude and his team out for to do an assessment on your church, it will literally poke holes in a lot of things that you thought was great, but that's a great thing that you can expose and be better at. So yeah, intentional churches is what you call it, right?
Yep.
Okay, go find out, do that. It will be nothing but healthy for y'all.
That's awesome. Mike, thanks for the time. Thanks for sitting with us.
Yeah, dude. Honored, man. It was so great to meet you guys.
Well, I hope you were encouraged by that. That was a super fun conversation to have with Mike, and we super appreciate him taking the time to sit with us and talk about all these different things regarding reimagining momentum. The fact is that the game hasn't changed. It's just been played out in a different context, possibly with some new players. If you're not a sports fan, maybe that doesn't resonate, but ministry is going to continue on. It's going to keep going. We just have to look at it differently. And we've taken a seat back. We've kind of watched it as it's kind of taken a rest period from what we've known, but now it's picking back up again in different parts of the country, depending on where you're at right now. Maybe that's reopening in a physical gathering space. Maybe you still got quite a bit of time before that's even ever thought about. But so I encourage you, no matter where you're at in this time, that you possibly step outside of being in the grind and you work on your student ministry, you work on your youth ministry and what it means to actually win. Change your measures of success. Grab a few leaders, pull them in with you, but then also for yourself, allow God to work on your heart and allow God to reveal some things in you maybe you've been holding on to that's preventing you from seeing it in this new light. I believe that by doing that, it's going to change things for you. It's going to change things for all of us. We're with you in this. So maybe you got some questions. Maybe some things were stirred up inside of you through this conversation and you need somebody to talk to, reach out to us. All the links and stuff are in the bio and on this video. Reach out to us in a multitude of ways. We're on all social channels. Find us there. Also, share this. Subscribe. Maybe you're watching us on YouTube right now. If you're not watching this on YouTube, surprise, we're on YouTube. Subscribe to this. Share this out with some other people. Sit with them. Think about this as we reimagine momentum. Until next time, peace, blessings.